In today's Leeds news, more fixture changes. Harrison makes his position clear. Buendia availability change. Phillips return rumours latest, and Leeds bid to save TV Harrison football ground. Morning folks, Chair here, Friday morning the 21st of March with your Leeds United news. I hope you're all having a really good week so far, a positive week. A lot of the international stuff is starting to get out of the way. We're nearly there, one more week to go. No games of the weekend for Leeds, but we have got some detail today and some positive stories towards the end of the news, as we like to throw in at least one heartfelt nice story on a Friday for everyone heading into the weekend. We'll start off though with the TV changes, and Leeds have been again impacted by some changes for TV, not all involving a full game move, but definitely some changes in the TV schedule. Two more fixtures have now been chosen for TV and have been confirmed by Leeds United. Leeds' trip to Oxford United on April 18th will now be live on Sky Sports, and the kickoff has been moved from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the evening. Leeds' Easter Monday clash has also now been scheduled for TV, although its date isn't changing. It remains on the 21st of April, the game against Stoke, but will now kick off at 3 p.m. instead of an evening kickoff, which it was initially planned for, which means the recovery time between both games for Leeds United has now reduced by several hours, while it hasn't happened for our promotion rivals. And again, I know Leeds are the cash cow of the division, but it's getting increasingly tougher for Leeds United. The recovery time of Leeds is significantly less on average this season against Burnley and Sheffield United, so it has an impact on these games, especially when there's multiple games over the course of a weekend, which Leeds have struggled with this season. Let's move on and talk a little bit about the Jack Harrison situation. And Jack's loan at Everton is slowly coming to an end, at least for this season, and there have been several stories around what his future holds and where he could potentially go. Harrison has been linked with a move back to the MLS, as well as also being linked with a return to Leeds United in the Premier League should Leeds get there. Harrison has now spoken on his own future and his personal choice while working at a warm weather camp in Abu Dhabi with the Everton squad during the international break. So far this season, Jack Harrison has 1 goal and no assists, but believes that he can bounce back from this and re-find the form to play in a top Premier League side and maybe even get into the England squad, and he believes he can do all of that while at Everton. And on his future, he said the following: "I think with the new ownership, new manager, and going into an amazing new stadium next season, this is somewhere I want to be. It would be exciting to be part of the bigger picture and help the club to get from where it has been for the past couple of years to fighting for European football again, and even more in the way of silverware. With the size of Everton and this fan base and how passionate they are, there's no reason why the club can't achieve that, and who wouldn't want to be part of that?" Harrison has been outspoken about his thoughts on Leeds United and the fan base over the last 2 years, and he's very clearly pinned his colours to the mast with this statement around where he wants to go, and he sees his future very much being at Everton, or at least his preference will be to stay at Everton. As of right now, it's unclear whether Everton feel the same way about Jack Harrison as he does about them. He has been criticised quite heavily by a large portion of their fan base this year and has had long periods of the season where he's been out of the team. Everton are starting to move up the table and have progressive plans next season. Whether Jack Harrison is part of that remains to be seen. Leeds United CEO Angus Kinnear moving in there as well, and doesn't have a particularly great relationship with Jack Harrison after comments he made on the square ball 2 years ago. So that will be an interesting one for him to keep an eye on, whether Jack is fighting for his future at Everton or not. He clearly wants it there. It remains to be seen. Leeds do still own his contract, and that will be a debate that will happen likely into the summer, and we'll give you the detail on that as and when we get it. Moving on, let's talk about a player who was linked with Leeds several times over the last couple of seasons, and that's Buendia. And as we know, he'd been linked last summer with a move to Leeds United, as well as a move in January to Leeds. Angus Kinnear on the square ball in the summer said that Leeds had made a move for the player, but unfortunately were unable to get him. And Leeds did then try again in January to bring Buendia to the club, but he chose to move to the Bundesliga instead and headed off to Bayer Leverkusen. Leverkusen have a €20 million option to buy Buendia in the loan agreement that they have with Aston Villa. Things haven't worked out exactly the way that he would have hoped since he's gone there, and that is leaving the door open for Leeds United to make a move again this summer should the club decide he's a player that they want. The 28-year-old attacking midfielder has made one starting appearance for Bayer Leverkusen this season and has got into a public clash with a fellow teammate as well. And according to German outlet Kicker, they say that Leverkusen are said to be unlikely to trigger the option to buy on the deal with Buendia and likely see him return to Aston Villa. And they will then look at other creative number 10 options for them next season. This means that Buendia will, as I say, likely return to Aston Villa and may allow Leeds to make another move for the player this summer. Should Leeds get to the Premier League, it's a much easier move for Leeds to make. They've said that in the past, that the division was an issue. He wants to play in the Premier League. But whether Leeds decide themselves whether they should look at other creative number 10 options after this loan move for Buendia hasn't really worked out in the Bundesliga. Do Leeds want to take a gamble on that, or do Leeds themselves want to go in a different direction? So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. Good player in Buendia. Interesting to see what happens. He's come back from a bad injury as well. It can take time to get back to your best. So if Leeds made a move in the summer, they could benefit from this stop-start kind of a loan that he's had at Leverkusen this season. But an interesting one to keep an eye on. We know Daniel Farke is a fan and likes the player and trusts him, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. Moving on, let's talk about Kalvin Phillips in this rumour that's been floating around for a while. And over the past 2 months, Kalvin Phillips has been continuously linked with a return to Leeds United should they get promoted to the Premier League. Reports of a verbal agreement between Leeds United, Manchester City and the player himself were said last week to not be true, and that no agreement is in place with the player or with Manchester City, and his £150,000 per week salary is seen as a major issue in this as well, not to mention his form over the past 3 seasons at 3 separate clubs. Now, reports coming this morning from Graham Bailey say that the midfielder returning to Leeds United is a real possibility and that there is a willingness on all sides to get a deal done. He claims that the 49ers are considering signing him on a loan deal if it makes financial sense and fits within Leeds United's budgets, even if Leeds United were to miss out on promotion to the Premier League this season. And his full quote from Bailey is as follows: "I firmly believe Phillips will return to Leeds. A loan deal would be appealing to them and fit within their financial budget. Whether that was Premier League or Championship, I fully expect Leeds to get promoted, but even if they didn't, I believe that he will be at Elland Road next season." The key line in that statement from Graham Bailey for me is if it makes financial sense for Leeds United. Leeds have done some very good bargain shopping over the last 24 months. The likes of Outanaka coming in for very little money, and the salary he's on will be modest enough comparative to other players in the Premier League. Do Leeds want to invest heavily in a player who has been out of form for 3 seasons and will be an expensive loan, even if it was just a loan? So far this season, Phillips has played 17 games for Ipswich. He's started 14 all season, and in that time period he's averaged 71 minutes per game. Phillips, from a passing accuracy perspective, it's still pretty respectable from his perspective, an 81% passing accuracy average across the season so far. But from a tackling perspective and duels, he's only won an average 1.9 tackles per game and has a 42% duel winning percentage overall this season. So his tackling and duel stats will be fairly low for what you would want from a defensive midfielder in the Premier League, especially a defensive midfielder in its team that are defending more than they're attacking. So yeah, look, for me it doesn't make financial sense to Leeds. I think the form is a big factor in this and what Kalvin has done, and again whether he fits into a double pivot central midfield system or not. He did effectively under Gareth Southgate, but outside of that and Marcelo Bielsa, it hasn't really worked. But I would love to know people's opinions down below. It'll be in the question of the day: do you see Kalvin Phillips returning to Leeds United in the summer? But we'll move on. Let's talk about some nice positive news, I suppose, coming into a Friday evening. And this one comes from a report in the Yorkshire Evening Post from Graham Smith today, and it relates to Leeds United taking control of a famous ground. Leeds have been praised by local MP for Leeds South after the club bid to save a historic footballing ground. In 2022, the club put forward a proposal to take control of the TV Harrison football grounds in Wordley for the next 250 years at a cost of £50,000. The football ground was the home of the Leeds City Boys and was known as Wordley's Wembley, and has been the place of numerous Leeds United homegrown players to come through, the likes of David Batty and Brian Deane being name-checked in this article. Leeds City Council had planned to build social housing on the land, but that proposal has now been withdrawn after the area was deemed an asset of local importance. This week, MP Mark Sewards has revealed that the ground co-owners, Leeds Schools Sports Association, have accepted a bid from Leeds United to take control of the ground. This will include a covenant that states that the ground can only be used for sporting activity and cannot be used for housing in the future. And the statement read as follows: The LSSA currently own most of the TV Harrison ground. The proposed deal would also see Leeds United invest in the ground to make it an even better playing facility. I'm so pleased to announce that the initial offer from Leeds United has now been accepted by the LSSA. It goes on to say that the final stages of this are still to be sorted out, and that the next stage will be for Leeds United themselves to engage with the local community to determine whether the residents of Farnley and Wordley want this to happen at all before they go ahead and make any plans to do improvement works to the ground. But it's great to see Leeds United as a club getting involved in the local stuff as well, and helping an area that is and has been historically important for the club at an entry level, even as a grassroots level. It's great to see that. That's what you want to see from your football club. You want to see it investing in local facilities and local sports grounds as well. And it's a fantastic achievement. I'm great to see Leeds doing that kind of stuff. So a positive story to end the week. There'll be nothing over the course of the weekend because of the international break, folks. Back on Monday morning for your Leeds news. Merch store is open if you want to get your hands on the Leeds 4 hoodie, as well as any of the merch that's there as well, linked below in the description. Have a great weekend, enjoy yourselves, and I will talk to you Monday morning for more Leeds news. See you then.